Hello? Hello? Is the microphone live? It's not. We have a handout, a special handout for Hope. Could you give me one? It's so important that I will just read it to you now. I didn't realize that this problem was developing until I looked at the schedule for this event. So, Hope, remember software freedom. The free software movement stands for users' freedom. We say users deserve to have control of the software that does their computing. A proprietary non-free program gives its proprietor power over the users, which is wrong and is likely to be malware. Software freedom is a human right. By contrast, the idea of open source is amoral and apolitical. The practical criteria are nearly the same, but it presents them as an option for developers that feel like it. I'll talk, put away the lights, I'll talk. Please. By contrast, the idea of open source is amoral and apolitical. The practical criteria are nearly the same, but it presents them as an option for developers that feel like it. When developers prefer to subjugate users instead, open source says, okay, Hope is about freedom in using technology. The free software movement embodies Hope's values while open source rejects them. We would expect to find strong support for free software at Hope. In fact, Hope has mostly forgotten free software. Many of the presentation's abstracts say open source. Only 2 refer to free software. Hackers of Hope show you support software freedom. Say free Libre software. It's not too late to change the slides of your talk, even its abstract on xi.hope.net, to visibly support software freedom. So every time you say free software, you're choosing to show your support. Think of this as like a political campaign. When you put up a sign saying Black Lives Matter, you're making a statement to people. And if you put up a sign saying lives, well, you're not making any political statement at all. So you have a choice every time you're going to talk about the issue. The VGA is still, no, that's not going to do anything, please. It's going to cause confusion. I've tried this. Nothing still visible. And then there's a third mode it goes through. But it's not working. Damn. Well, this is going to be quite unfortunate. It looks like you're not going to be able to see any slides. There's something fishy. No, I don't. I have an adapter, but it's in Queens. Well, this is a horrible screw. I wanted to show you what my talks are like now that I have. Put it up here. This is all, the GNU is supposed to be seen. You see, having a GNU where people don't see it doesn't make a statement to people. Having the GNU where people can see it makes a statement. Well, this is so sad. I know my machine works. I've been making VGA presentations over and over and over. Why does it not work here? Yeah, I'm doing it over and over.
No, it's not you. It's us. We had a problem. I think something got decabled on the overnight.
Oh.
I apologize. We had VGA all day yesterday and this morning.
That's good.
I'm sorry.
In any case, I hope you get it fixed soon. It's still not quite 12 o'clock.
So if you want to
Yeah.
keep talking, that's okay. If you want to let us keep working on it,
Okay.
2 minutes, it's really up to you. I know it's a distraction.
That's fine. I can cope.
But we know you're a professional.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
really up to you, but I think we're
Right.
going to keep working the problem.
Yes, good. and I always like to be able to see the people I'm talking to, but it's so dark in here I can't see you. Now, I mean, I might conceivably enjoy sleeping with some of you, but that's not what we're here for. So if it's possible to increase the light on the audience, please. What? Someone's saying something I can't hear, but someone's uncomfortable with something. I'd like more light on the audience if that's possible.
House lights!
If you shine it towards your face, I could see your face. That would help a little bit. But only with one of the people in the audience. We need light everywhere. Maybe they don't have.
I think it's for recording.
It's going to be, it just makes it harder for me to give the talk when I can't see people. Oh, good. Good, thank you. I don't know why it is. You might think I could give the same speech to this blankness and it would be the same, but it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. Now I can see I'm talking to people, and I can see some expressions on people's faces. It really helps. How much more time do I have to fill before we get the video?
Tell your joke.
Well, my latest joke is not safe for work, so I think I shouldn't tell it here.
Your dentist joke.
My which one?
Your dentist joke.
Oh, I don't know if that joke is funny enough to most people to make it worth telling.
Definitely tell it now.
Well, I had a tooth extracted a week ago, and I was told I could only eat soft foods, so if I ate pasta, it couldn't be al dente, it had to be alla gengiva. Well, at least some people got it.
That's a very sophisticated joke, Richard.
Well, maybe I should start talking and looking at the slides myself.
Yeah, do that.
I guess I better. Hello? So this is in the right mode now for showing the slideshow. But anyway, free software refers to freedom, not price. It's a mistake to think that free software means you get it, quote, for free, unquote. We're not talking about the price at all. It's not wrong to sell copies of a free program. In fact, that's part of the freedom that defines free software. It's perfectly legitimate. You are free to make more copies and sell them for whatever someone will pay. We're just not concerned with the issue of price. That's a distraction from the issue that matters, which is your freedom when you do computing. So we sometimes use the word Libre, which comes from French or Spanish, instead of free or together with free, so that, oh, now they're showing me, but can you show the slides? I mean, people can see me. The last time I had a video problem, I put my computer up on a chair on a table and turned it around. The room was small enough people could see it that way. Anyway, by using the word Libre, you clarify what free means. And I've personally decided never to use the word free to refer to price. Never in any context at all. I always say gratis. If I mean something is available at zero price, I always say gratis, so that whenever I say free, you know I'm talking about freedom and only freedom. Now, to think about free software, we need to think about what is a program and what's a computer. A computer is a simple machine, conceptually simple, that can only do one thing: get the next instruction and do what it says. And it does that over and over, millions of times a second. And depending on what the instructions are, the same computer could do any computation. So the program gives the instructions to the computer and determines what it will do. The same computer can do almost anything within the limits of what's possible. So who gives the instructions to your computer? Oh, it's so sad you don't get to see this picture. It's so people won't be able to, uh-oh, shit. Batteries now come out of my, it fell down and the battery came out, but I can, can you repair it for me? That battery's not, it's just irrelevant, it was there.
I won't.
Okay, well then, would somebody like to put the battery back in this clock for me? So in any case, you might think that you give the instructions to your computer when really it's somebody else, like Microsoft, giving the instructions.
If you'd like to just face your laptop, you could put a camera on it. It's
Oh, that would actually work.
I'd like to tell everyone we're having a VGA disaster right now.
Okay, well, the problem is I won't be able to see it myself.
I know.
Okay. Now make it, zoom in, zoom in. People can't see it if they... Let's see what I can do. Maybe this way... Oh no, my body is jittering.
Yeah, that sounds a little that looks a little risky. Do you want to just put it on the table?
I guess.
Is that you?
I'm not doing any of that. I don't know what's happening.
There you are. Let's just see if we can get it. But this is... I think that's going to be satisfying. Why don't we put it on the table?
Okay, let's put it on the table and see if that helps. Do you know why this is called Poland spring water? Oh boy. Do you know why this is called Poland spring water? Because they used to deliver it using pogo sticks. This is what a computer does, and with the instructions it gets out of the program. So, so there's some things that the computer can't do. They're just impossible. But within that limit, the same computer could do anything. So who gives the instructions to your computer? You might think it's you, when really it's someone else. You might think your computer is obeying you, when really it's obeying someone else first, and only obeys you when the real master says it's allowed to obey you. That's no good. So there are two possibilities for any program. Either the users control the program, or the program controls the users. When the users control the program, that's free software. That's what it takes for the program to respect the user's freedom, which is the definition, the fundamental idea of free software, software that respects the user's freedom. But in order for it to do that, the users must have control of the program. What is freedom? Freedom is having control of your own life, control of the activities you do in your life, which means if you use a program to do the activity, you need control of that program to make it do the activity the way you want instead of the way someone else wants to impose on you. So, when the users control the program, it respects their freedom and it's free software. But that, for the users to have control over the program, they need to have the 4 essential freedoms. Freedom 0 is the freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. Freedom 1 is the freedom to study the program's source code and change it so that it does your computing activities as you wish. Why source code? Why is source code important? Well, here's some source code. It's a combination of English and math. If you've learned to program and you know that programming language, you can see what that program will do. And you can change it to do something different. But in order to run the program, we typically convert it into an executable. An executable is an enigmatic series of zeros and ones. Figuring out what those zeros and ones do is a very hard job called reverse engineering. Now, when the program is that small, it's not really so hard. But for a real program that might be, say, 100,000 lines in its source code, to figure out from the executable what it's doing is tremendously hard. It's done only as a desperate last resort. So if someone tells you, you're free to change this program, you'll have to reverse engineer it first, but you're free, that's bogus. That's mocking the users with a parody of freedom. So the freedom to change the program is only real when the users have the source code. Now, these 2 freedoms give us separate control. Each user separately has control over per copies. So I can change my copies and you're free to change your copies. And this much is essential, but it's not enough because most users don't know how to program. They do other things. There are lots of useful things to do in life, and there's no reason to expect that everybody is capable of being a good programmer or has any interest in being a programmer. But they all deserve control over their computing. How are non-programmers going to have that? Through collective control, the freedom to work with other users to exercise control over that program. At the top, we see a group of 3 users that are working together to exercise control over what this program does. 2 of them are directly changing the code. They must be programmers. The third one on the left is not changing the code. Maybe he is a non-programmer. But by participating in the group's decisions, he participates in control over what that version of the program is going to do. The people who collaborate in this way are those who choose to collaborate. Those 3 choose to work together. At the bottom, we see 2 others that are not working with them. Why not? Maybe they don't know each other. Maybe those 2 just want different things. They don't agree with those 3, so they prefer the original version. Maybe they just don't like each other and don't want to work together. Maybe tomorrow they'll meet each other and decide to work together, all 5. Whatever they want. Those who choose to work together are free to do so. Collective control requires 2 more essential freedoms. Freedom 2 is the freedom to make exact copies, that is, of the version you got, and then give or sell them to others when you wish. And freedom 3 is the freedom to redistribute modified versions. So supposing you exercised freedom 1 and you changed a copy of the program, With Freedom 3, you're free to make more copies of that version and give or sell them to others when you wish. By the way, if you want to make a recording of this talk, I have conditions for that, for distributing copies. Basically, about how they're distributed, what kind of site can be used. It shouldn't require running any non-free software. That's unethical to distribute an audio or video in that way. I don't want you making a hypocrite out of me by distributing a recording of my talk in a way that requires people to run non-free software to hear the recording. So come talk with me if you want to distribute copies. Also, I want it under the Creative Commons No Derivatives license, because this is a presentation of my point of view. So, and by the way, if you take a photo of me, do not put it in Facebook. Or Instagram, because it's the same company. Facebook is a surveillance engine. It recognizes people in photos by their faces or even the backs of their heads. So if you put a photo showing someone else into Facebook, you are helping the company to track that person. You shouldn't do that to people, and in any case, please don't do that to me. And really, I think you should decline to be a used of Facebook. Facebook doesn't have users, it has useds. We have to say no to systems that are designed to track people, and especially the ones that use us as bait for others to be tracked. So, when the program, these two freedoms allow the members of any group to work together. So if one in the group makes a modified version, then with Freedom 3, she can make more copies of that and distribute them to others in the group. And they can make more copies, and using Freedom 2, they can distribute those copies to yet others in the group till they've all got it. In addition, these same freedoms permit them to offer copies to others, even to publish versions, which means offering copies to all and sundry. Now, in Freedom 2, there is a part which has a special moral importance, and that is sharing copies, the non-commercial redistribution of exact copies. Sharing has a privileged moral status because it builds communities that cooperate. So sharing must be treated as sacred. Any law that forbids sharing copies of a published work is directly antisocial. It's an attack on society. Is this some tea? Oh, great. I'll be all right. Just have to get this off here because otherwise it will be... So the war on sharing is completely vicious, not only in its methods, which are often draconian and violate established principles of justice, but the very idea of trying to stop people from share is, you might say, the heart of evil. This is why I reject terms such as piracy, propaganda for the war on sharing. Piracy is attacking ships. Piracy is very bad. But sharing is good. So let's not call them both by the same word. That's just propaganda for the copyright industry. And if we repeat that word, we're spreading their propaganda. So let's make an effort to consciously refuse to share to spread their propaganda. If you agree with it, you're free to do so. If you don't agree, then you're free not to do so. So when people ask me what I think of piracy, I say attacking ships is very bad. Let's send the Navy. If they ask me what I think of movie piracy, I say I liked the first Pirates of the Caribbean. I couldn't stand the second one because it had a parrot that was a villain. And, you know, if you insult parrots, you're not going to win my support. So, I believe we should legalize sharing copies of any published work. As a separate matter, I believe that all software, even if it's not published, must be free. Whoever's using that software must have the 4 freedoms. And likewise, other works that are designed to do practical jobs must be free. Because the same arguments about that the users must have control over the work, they apply to any work that people use to do practical jobs. Now, you don't use fiction to do practical jobs. You appreciate it. You don't use poetry for a practical job. You don't use a song. You don't use somebody's statement of opinion. So that argument only applies to functional works, works whose reason for existence is they do something. They do a practical thing, and you want to do that practical thing, so you use the work to do it. Perhaps the entries in the obfuscated C context are the one exception to the conclusion that software must be free, because they're not written to be used. They're written to be looked at and admired, so they're art rather than functional work. So we can treat them ethically like all the other art. On the other hand, if one of them actually is useful and people use it as well as looking at the source and saying how funny, then it's a functional work. So, if the program carries these 4 freedoms adequately, completely, then up to the usual standards, that is, then it's free software. And that means it respects the user's freedom and it's distributed in a way that is ethical. But if any of these freedoms is missing or incomplete, then the users do not control the program. Instead, the program controls the users and the proprietor controls the program. So this is what happens with a non-free program. It's an instrument of unjust power. It's used by some proprietor to subjugate users. Sorry, I'm trying to put it, because sometimes I have to be down here, you see. I'm trying to make it work all the time, which is, because standing bent over like this is not too nice either. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, right, there's another mic. Let's see what happens. Maybe now I can get stereo. So, this is an injustice. Non-free software is intrinsically an injustice. We should never tolerate it. It has no legitimate place in human life. But, although this is an injustice, it leads to other injustices. Non-free software is very often malware. Malware means a program designed to mistreat the people who run it. You will find that most discussions of malware close their eyes to proprietary software product malware, and they only think about virus or inserted code malware. Why this semi-blindness, I wonder? But because proprietary product malware is omitted from most such discussions, I will focus on that now to make up for the gap. You see, with proprietary software, the proprietor knows the power it exercises over the users. It knows that if it puts in malware, the malicious functionalities, the users will be unable to remove it, and in many cases they won't be able to find out it's happening. So, that means they face temptation, constant temptation to mistreat the users. And they do this constantly. For instance, they make programs spy on the user. This shows the Amazon swindle, Amazon's ebook reader. Let me try sitting down. Maybe this will actually work more easily for my back. It does Orwellian surveillance of the reader because it transmits from time to time the title of the book and the page number to Amazon servers. Not only that, if the user underlines anything, that's sent to Amazon. If the user enters any notes, they're sent to Amazon. So it's total surveillance. Amazon's ebook distribution system is also unjust. It also surveils readers. So please do not let yourself become accustomed to this. The healthy reaction when you find out these facts is to say, I will never use such a thing. That's what you do if you love freedom. And it's not too late for you to start being a person who loves freedom. But spying on users is very common in proprietary software. There are surveillance functionalities in Windows, in Mac OS, in the iThings, in Flash Player, and in lots of proprietary apps. Remember that when the press talks about, quote, free apps, unquote, they mean gratis proprietary apps in most cases. Even Android apps whose source code is free typically depend on the non-free Google Play Services library, which means the program as a whole is not free. And what does Google like to do with people's data? If you use a proprietary program from Google, what do you think it's doing with your data? Probably collecting it from you and putting it in Google servers. So we know that even flashlight apps connect over the net and send data to somebody. Why should that be necessary? Does it need to ask, hey, what's the light level over here? How hard should I turn on the screen? Are there certain local rules that it has to look up about whether you're allowed to have a flashlight? No, it's just surveillance. It can't be anything else. Almost all the streaming apps are spy devices. Consider Spotify, for instance. Spotify, one of the reasons, well, Spotify does three evil things. One of them is DRM. Another is it imposes a contract on the user that restricts what the user does. When the user gets a copy, it's restricted by this contract. It's an end-user license agreement, basically. And the third nasty thing that Spotify does is it tracks what people listen to. We should never tolerate devices that track what we listen to. So I say, out, damned Spotify. By the way, raise your hand if you would like to get a sticker that says, out, damned Spotify. I see there's demand for it. I'd like to arrange to get them made. So the way that the app does this is with proprietary software. You see, malicious functionalities like this depend on proprietary software because that's why the users can't fix them. But Spotify is not unusual. It's typical for internet music or video distribution services to do all of these things. And any one of them is enough to make it an injustice. But beyond just spying, there's also the functionality of refusing to do what users want. DRM, Digital Restrictions Management. This shows the notorious blue ray that attacks users who want to share. I have never used a Blu-ray disc, and I never will, until we have free software that can read it, so that I don't subject myself to the digital handcuffs of that device. DRM is very common. The software to provide the basis for DRM is found in Windows, in Mac OS, and I'm pretty sure it's in iOS, the system of the iThings, and in Android. DRM is found in Flash Player. It's found in the Amazon Swindle, in lots of streaming apps, and it's totally unacceptable. But there's also worse. There are backdoors, functionalities that accept commands from the proprietor or someone else to do something nasty to the user, and the user has no choice, no say over the matter. We know of backdoors in Windows, in the iThings, and in the Amazon Swindle, and in nearly all portable phones. Now, you can't generally tell that there is a backdoor unless you're lucky and you get to observe its use. The backdoor in the Amazon Swindle was detected because in 2009, Amazon remotely erased thousands of copies of a particular book. Which book was it? It was 1984 by George Orwell. I wouldn't dare make this up in fiction. People would say, that's too implausible. But it's what happened. A person came to one of my talks and told me afterwards that he had seen the book disappear as he was in the middle of reading it. Of course, there was a lot of criticism, so Amazon pretended to promise it would never do this again unless ordered to by the state. Think about that. If you've read 1984, that is not a very comforting promise. But turns out it wasn't a sincere promise. It wasn't a real promise. It was just something to say to remove the momentum from the criticism. And a few years later, Amazon went back to arbitrarily, remotely erasing books without even an order from the state. And then there is censorship. Apple pioneered censorship of apps in the iPhone. For the first time, a general purpose computer was on sale which didn't let users install the software of their choice. They could only install software approved by the manufacturer of the computer. Software approved by Apple from Apple's App Store. Well, this is censorship. It is completely intolerable. Some users found ways to break the censorship, to get around it and install programs that were not approved by Apple. They called this jailbreak, recognizing that these computers are designed to be jails for their users. That's our term for such a computer. It's a jail. Of course, Microsoft followed Apple's lead. There's also another way to attack the users. This describes what happened to the PlayStation 3. Originally, it was sold with two modes of use. One was to play proprietary games over Sony's gaming network, and the other was to install systems such as GNU plus Linux. But then somebody figured out a way to break some of the DRM from GNU plus Linux, and Sony decided they didn't want people to be able to run it anymore. So they released a firmware downgrade and said, from now on, if you can either install the downgrade and you will lose the ability to run GNU/Linux, or you can stay with the old firmware and lose the ability to play games over the gaming network. Now, since those games are proprietary, they attack your freedom anyway. If it had been me, I would have kept the old firmware and I wouldn't have played those games anyway. I won't run a non-free program on my computer. But that doesn't reduce the viciousness of what Sony did. And later on, somebody found a way to jailbreak the PlayStation 3, and Sony sent the cops after him, which is why we started our total boycott of Sony. See boycottsony.org. If Sony ever apologizes for its conduct and undoes what it's done, we could reconsider that boycott. And then there are universal backdoors. A universal backdoor is one that has the power to remotely install software changes, which means that the controller of the backdoor can do absolutely anything to the user. First, install the code to do that thing, and then it runs and does that thing. So that's why the term universal is appropriate. It's universal in the same sense that a computer is a universal computing engine. Windows has a universal backdoor since at least Windows XP. This was demonstrated to exist. Microsoft didn't admit it. But nowadays in Windows 10, Microsoft cheerfully says that it has a universal backdoor, which is called auto upgrade. Basically, it's a way Microsoft can forcibly change the code in the machine. So the user of Windows is totally at Microsoft's mercy. The Amazon swindle also has a universal backdoor. So do most portable phones. In portable phones, they use the back door to convert them into full-time listening devices that never really shut off and listen all the time and transmit whatever they hear. And when you put this together with the fact that they're always being tracked, and the phone network can track the phone without the phone's cooperation, as long as the phone is transmitting occasionally so as to be in communication, the towers can triangulate to determine where that phone is. So a portable phone, even if it's not a smartphone, is a tracking and listening device. It's Stalin's dream. That's why I refuse to carry one. Those of you who were old enough in 1996 to think about questions like this, if you had been told, here's a nice device, you can use it to make phone calls and it will track you everywhere and it will listen to everything you say and all the conversation around you, you would have said, that's disgusting, I won't take it. Well, I had good fortune. By the time I thought about getting one, since I'm generally a late adopter of technology, I had already learned these things. I already knew how horrible it was, so I said no. And I went on living the way I'd been living for years before. And it wasn't any harder than it had been before. Nowadays, if I'm walking around somewhere and I need to make a phone call, I ask someone, could you please make a call for me? Typically a stranger. Almost always I find someone who will. You know, some people won't, some people can't, they're foreigners, their phones are expensive or to use. So I ask a few people and I find someone. So think about that when you decide whether to carry a portable phone. We have a project to try to, in the planning stages, to try to make a portable phone safe to carry, which means you got to be able to prevent the back door from turning it into a listening device. A smartphone has two processors. There's the modem processor and the application processor. The application processor can run a free operating system, for instance, Replicant, which is the free version of Android. But the modem processor, we have no free software for. The processor is secret. We don't know how to write free software for it, and nowadays they check for signatures, so we wouldn't be allowed to install the free software. It wouldn't work. It would be automatically blocked from functioning even if it were a correct program. And that's where the back door is, you see. And in most phones, once they take control of the modem processor, or maybe it's already given to them in advance, they can rewrite the software in the application processor. So even if you installed a free system there, they can put a non-free one there. What good is that? So we have to make sure that it's safe from that. We have to get the non-free software for that modem processor out of the software load so that people won't be installing non-free software. It should be in a ROM. We have to give it a one-way pager capability so that you can have your phone in non-transmitting mode all the time and people notify you when they're trying to contact you. That way you can receive calls, but you get to decide where you are going to and when to disclose your location to receive the call. When someone pages you, you can decide how urgent it is. Do I have to reveal my location here to talk to that person now, or should I wait till 4 hours from now when I'm in another place and I don't mind if Big Brother knows? There needs to be a switch in the antenna line so that the that the modem processor can't send signals when it's supposed to be not doing so. So various changes have to be made in the phone. And we're looking at this. With some luck, it may be possible. If you are an expert in this area, please come talk to me or send me mail. So, there's another way that the proprietor can attack users. Microsoft does it. Microsoft shows security bugs in Windows to the NSA before fixing them, thus directly betraying every one of its clients. We only have evidence in the case of Microsoft. For every other proprietary software developer, we simply don't know whether they're doing this or not. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It's just uncertainty. So basically, if you're using proprietary software, you're already almost certainly being dragged behind the bus. The examples I've mentioned are used by nearly every user of proprietary software. So I've already proved it, but we have a lot more examples. We have dozens more examples. Look at GNU.org/proprietary for long, organized lists. And why do they do it? Because they make more money by mistreating users. They collect data, they manipulate users into buying more, all sorts of nasty things they can do. And it's only getting nastier with the Internet of Stings. proprietary devices in your house are mistreating you, of course. And a lot of them are mistreating people in a new way. They depend on a remote server. If that server stops running, the device can't be used anymore. I first found out about this with the Fitbit. The Fitbit measures things like people's steps and so on, and then it sends that data to the company's server. The company then invites the device's so-called owner to buy per own personal data from the company. I mean, what kind of sucker is that meant for? So, then there was the thermostat that stopped working because the server was disconnected, and then there's the camera Wi-Fi device that's going to stop working or stop being configurable because its server is going to be disconnected. Have people learned yet that any product that depends on using a remote server is a trap? So part of the reason I call it the Internet of Stings is this. But also it's been pointed out that a lot of these devices have a chance to guide the user's actions, which means that the proprietor can be paid to guide people a particular way. You've probably learned a long time ago that the Yellow Pages doesn't list all the restaurants, only the ones that paid to be listed, and the best ones are probably not in there. But this, take that and magnify it 1,000,000 times. In addition, they can be doing nasty things to you directly. So you mustn't trust a device in your home that that is run by proprietary software. And the dependence on a remote server should be considered a malicious functionality, which is typical in proprietary software. When they listen to people's voice, they're transmitting all that voice to a server, so they're spying on everything. They're listening all the time. I was staying in somebody's house who had an Alexa device. I unplugged it. I didn't want it reporting what I said to anybody, ever. Oh, it's a voice command device, which depends on a remote server, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't do things itself. It's comparable to Siri. And so it's a serious threat to your privacy. And basically, what all these malicious functionalities show is that you can't trust proprietary software. I'm sorry to say this, but using proprietary software is acting like a sucker. And I hope that you are wise enough not to be a sucker. You can never rationally trust a proprietary program. You can never have a rational basis for trusting it, because the same one that stops you, that could put in malicious functionalities, is also stopping you from checking for them and fixing them. So the proprietary software developers face temptation, and because they have power, and this power corrupts them. And in general, they are corrupt. It's not a rare exception. It's not even considered newsworthy anymore. You'll find articles warning that third parties might break the security and get your personal data. These articles often refer to them as hackers, which is not nice. It's insulting us. They should call those people crackers, people who break security. But that's a real danger. But they fail to notice the danger that the company that made the device will collect your personal data and mistreat it. uh, and privacy policies are no protection against this. As Eben Moglen recently said, they're generally designed to give the impression that something has been promised, while in fact letting them do whatever they want. So if you find yourself wondering what a privacy policy says, you shouldn't be using that thing. If it matters to you what somebody pledges about respecting your privacy, that somebody cannot be, you shouldn't be putting that person in the, or that entity in the position to have that kind of power over you. The place where I get medical care uses something called Follow My Health, which I refer to as tracking your health. And I looked at their terms of service, which say they can change the terms at any time, and by continuing to use the service you've agreed, and various other nasty things. And their privacy policy was absolute crap. It said that they could release your data as long as they anonymized it, and that means they only have to remove a few identifying data, and of course we know it can be re-identified, and surely they will sell that data to data brokers that will do so. So I would have said no for this reason, but I didn't have a choice because it depends on non-free JavaScript code, so I couldn't run it anyway. So the thing is, with proprietary software, the only way to use it is with blind faith. And often it's blind faith in a company that has already shown it is not worthy of such faith, because it has already released proprietary malware. So just don't use it. However, in the free world, the free software developers, we know that we don't have power over you. The users control the program. If the users don't like what we did, the users can change it. And users are studying that code from time to time because they want to make some other change, add a feature, fix a bug. But in the process, they're understanding some of the code, and they have a chance to notice if we did anything wrong, which they can't even try to do with proprietary software. So the result is we aren't corrupted because we don't have power. And proprietary developers have no shame about mistreating people. They give speeches where they talk about their latest advances in how to mistreat users. They have completely lost their moral standard about this. Compare Windows XP, where Microsoft didn't want to admit that it had a universal backdoor because that would bring disapproval, with Windows 10, where Microsoft announces the universal backdoor. The moral standards in proprietary software are going down. And I suppose they'll keep going down until an organized movement starts rejecting their software and condemning it. And I'm, of course, in launching that movement, and you've got to help me. So what you need to do is escape from proprietary software and come to the free world that we have built with the GNU operating system and the Linux kernel. Together, they make it possible for you to run an operating system that's entirely free software and escape from proprietary software. I started GNU in 1984. In 1991, GNU was nearly complete at an initial level of service, but one important component was missing. That was the kernel, which allocates the machine's resources to the other programs you run. We started developing a kernel in 1990. Unfortunately, I chose a very advanced, elegant design, which made it a sort of research project, and it took 6 years to get a test version running. But we didn't have to wait for that, because in 1991, Torvalds started developing his kernel Linux. In 1991, Linux was proprietary software. Its license did not fully grant freedoms 2 and 3. However, in 92, he switched to a free license, so Linux became free software, and the combination of GNU and Linux made it possible for the first time to use a PC in freedom. Now, GNU/Linux is in principle a free operating system, but there are over 1,000 different versions, distros of GNU/Linux, and in each one the developers add some other programs. And sometimes they add proprietary programs, and then they make a distro that is not free as a whole. Now, in order for a collection, well, an operating system is a collection of programs. In order for it to respect users' freedom, every program in the collection, with no exceptions, must be free software. If there is one non-free program in the collection, that tramples users' freedom, so the collection as a whole tramples users' freedom. Sad to say, almost all of the distros contain some non-free software. There are around 10 distros that are free. For more information, look at gnu.org/distros, which lists the free distros, and for the well-known non-free distros, it explains in a very general way why they are non-free. If you want to help us in distro development, please join the development of one of the existing free distros. Please don't start another. We don't need to scatter the community's effort more. If you join up with one of the free distros that's now under development, you'll be helping in a very effective way. Now, how do you make a program free? You've got to put a free license on it. Every program that's written is automatically copyrighted. That's the badly designed copyright law of today. Does a lot of harm. But that's how it is. So if someone writes a program, by default, it's forbidden to copy it, change it, redistribute it, even run it in many circumstances, because that requires making a copy. Copying it into memory is copyright infringement. So, although it may depend on the details of the circumstances and what country you're in and so on. So how do you make it free? With an explicit declaration by the copyright holders giving every user, anyone who has a copy, that is, the 4 freedoms. That is called a free software license. And it qualifies as a free software license if it provides the 4 freedoms adequately, in full. So there are many different free software licenses. There are many different ways to do that job. But there are 2 main categories. The lax permissive licenses or pushover licenses say, oh, do whatever you like. Just keep my name on this somewhere. Well, those do grant users the 4 freedoms. The program with that license is free software. But it's not such a good way to do the job, and the reason is it permits a company to put that code into a proprietary program and use it to subjugate users. You may end up with millions of users running that code but not having freedom for it. This happened with Apache, for instance. You've seen statistics perhaps for how many websites were running Apache. Well, actually, they weren't all running the free Apache web server. Some of them were running IBM's proprietary modified web server, which had the code for Apache in it. But so what? It doesn't give users freedom. fortunately, when I started releasing GNU software, I had already seen how this could happen. I knew that I had to stop it from happening if I wanted to succeed in giving the users freedom. So I developed copyleft in the GNU General Public License. Copyleft puts a condition on how you exercise freedoms 2 and 3. It says when you distribute a copy to someone, whether it's modified or not, you must provide the source code, and you must provide the source and the executable, if any, under this same license. So you must respect the freedom of the next people just as we respected your freedom. What we're saying to the middleman is, no, you may not convert our code into a proprietary program and use it to subjugate people. You're welcome to use this in freedom and to distribute your modifications to others, as long as you respect their freedom as well, so that every user is legally required to be given freedom. The middlemen are not allowed to strip off the freedom and pass along the code as proprietary software. I have two motivations for this. One is I want the users to get freedom. That's why I wrote the programs, to give users freedom. So if what they got were proprietary